But as you now know, individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today. Former current NBA players and coaches.
For the basketball world, October 23rd, 2025 became a date etched in memory. What began as an ordinary game turned into a night no fan will soon forget. It was meant to be just another season opener. Until before sunrise, everything changed in the worst possible way.
New developments in the wake of the federal charges related to gambling. Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier and Portland Trailblazers head coach Chauncey Billups will not be paid.
On October 23rd, 2025, the basketball world was shaken to its core. Federal agents stormed 11 states in simultaneous raids, arresting dozens in what would become one of the biggest scandals in sports history. What stunned everyone wasn't just the scale of the operation, it was who got caught. Among those taken into custody was a Hall of Famer, a revelation that sent shockwaves through the NBA community. The investigation, which had quietly been unfolding for months, suddenly burst into the public eye under the banner of two coordinated stings, Operation Nothing But Bet and Operation Royal Flush. By the time the night was over, 34 people had been arrested, including figures connected to 4 mafia families and several NBA insiders. What began as quiet whispers about suspicious betting patterns and strange late-night meetings quickly spiraled into a full-blown federal case involving wire fraud, insider information leaks, and rigged high-stakes poker games. Prosecutors described it not as a string of isolated bad bets, but as a sophisticated criminal enterprise. Reports claimed that injury updates and locker room intel were being sold to gambling syndicates. Behind the scenes, elaborate cheating mechanisms, hidden cameras, marked cards, even contact lenses that could read invisible ink, were used to control outcomes in underground poker tournaments. At the heart of it all were 3 names no one expected: Terry Rozier, Chauncey Billups, and Damon Mookie Jones. Once admired for their toughness, leadership, and loyalty to the game, they now found themselves accused of betraying it. Rozier, affectionately known to fans as Scary Terry, had built a decade-long career on grit and heart. But now, instead of highlight reels and clutch performances, his name was being read aloud in a federal indictment, marking the beginning of one of the darkest chapters in NBA history.
I did as much as I could this year. I'm looking to make him work, and I know he's gonna make me work. So
Terry Rozier's name used to stand for grit, hustle, and big moment swagger. A $150 million resume built over a decade in the NBA. A respected veteran, he seemed to have nothing left to prove. But prosecutors say that behind the highlight reels and post-game interviews, Rozier wasn't just battling opponents on the court. He was allegedly feeding secret information to a betting network that turned his minutes, injuries, and stats into a gold mine. According to the indictment, Rozier tipped off associates about when he planned to leave certain games early, usually due to minor or exaggerated injuries. That inside knowledge, prosecutors said, became the lifeblood of a sophisticated gambling ring. His circle would allegedly hammer under prop bets, wagering that Rozier would score, rebound, or assist less than expected. In one key example from March 23, 2023, during a Hornets home game, Rozier reportedly told friends ahead of time that he'd exit early with an injury. Sure enough, minutes into the first quarter, he checked out claiming he'd tweaked his ankle. The bets hit for a staggering $200 million, and investigators allege that a portion of that cash, literal duffel bags full, was delivered straight to his home. The illusion finally cracked when FBI agents moved in. During the Miami Heat season opener, Rozier was arrested mid-game in Orlando, an unprecedented moment that turned a normal night of basketball into breaking news chaos. But the shock didn't stop there. Hours later, the second name dropped, and it rattled the sports world even harder. Chauncey Billups, the Finals MVP, 5-time All-Star Hall of Famer, and current head coach of the Portland Trailblazers, a man long seen as the embodiment of class and professionalism, was in custody. Billups wasn't accused of betting directly. Instead, prosecutors alleged he played a different, stranger role: the face card. According to the FBI, Billups was used as a lure, a celebrity presence designed to draw wealthy gamblers into high-stakes poker games that were secretly rigged. These weren't casual basement games. They were elaborate productions held in penthouse suites and private clubs. Everything, the tables, the dealers, even some players, was part of a setup engineered to ensure the house always won. Billups's attendance made the games look legitimate, a stamp of credibility that kept the rich fish biting. But behind the scenes, prosecutors claim it was all a con. He was arrested at dawn, just hours after coaching his team's season opener, in what became one of the most surreal days in NBA history. Then came Damon Mookie Jones, the alleged connector between the sports betting operation and the poker rigging ring. A former player turned assistant coach, Jones was known throughout the league as a charismatic figure with deep relationships and, as it turns out, a troubling history of gambling debts. Prosecutors painted him as the middleman, the one who leaked player information to gamblers while also helping coordinate the rigged poker nights. One incident in particular stood out. On February 9, 2023, before a Lakers vs. Bucks matchup, Jones allegedly tipped insiders that a Lakers star, whose name remains redacted in the official report, would sit out the game before the public announcement. Within minutes, betting markets flooded with heavy underwagers. When the star didn't play, millions were won. That tip became one of the first pieces of evidence linking Jones to what the FBI later dubbed Operation Nothing But Bet. What investigators uncovered looked less like simple sports gambling and more like Wall Street insider trading. It was a sleek, covert network operating in plain sight, leveraging non-public information for guaranteed profit. At its core was the proposition or prop bet, wagers based not on who wins the game, but on micro-moments, individual points, rebounds, assists, turnovers. These bets exploded in popularity after nationwide legalization, making sports more interactive, but also far easier to exploit. The FBI found that a tight circle of insiders, players, assistants, and associates were feeding injury and minute restriction information to professional bettors. Those bettors then used the intel to target specific prop lines. When someone knew a player would play fewer minutes or sit out early, it wasn't gambling anymore. It was theft disguised as luck. Between February 2023 and March 2024, the conspirators allegedly targeted at least 7 NBA games, placing bets as high as $200,000 per contest. To stay undetected by sportsbook monitoring systems, they used networks of straw bettors, friends, relatives, and even hired stand-ins who placed wagers under different names across multiple platforms like FanDuel, DraftKings, and offshore accounts. When the bets hit, the payout chain activated. Money flowed fast, from digital to physical in a matter of hours. Transfers moved through peer-to-peer payment apps, crypto wallets, wire payments disguised as consulting fees, and eventually old-school cash handoffs. The scheme was so seamless that, for months, no one noticed. Then came the photo that blew it all open. After that infamous March 2023 Hornets game, investigators say Rozier's associates drove straight to his house, carrying duffel bags stuffed with money. They allegedly counted the stacks right there on his living room table. An image later recovered by federal agents that one prosecutor compared to a deleted scene from Goodfellas. What began as a few quiet bets had spiraled into a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise, one that blurred the line between competition and corruption, forever changing the way fans look at the game.
Right now it's just, I feel like it's not a factor in my mind. And
the audacity was staggering. The entire scheme was organized with such precision that it functioned like a professional operation. Invisible, efficient, and for a while, completely foolproof. To the average fan, nothing seemed out of place. Games unfolded normally. No suspicious fouls, no obvious missed shots, no dramatic collapses that might raise eyebrows. Everything looked clean. The only hint of trouble was buried deep within the numbers. Unusual betting patterns that began to trigger automated alerts across multiple sportsbooks. A sudden flood of underwagers, targeting specific players just minutes before tip-off. That was the first red flag. It was those irregularities that first caught the FBI's attention. Once federal data analysts began connecting the dots, a disturbing picture formed. The same insiders, the same bettors, and the same outcomes appeared across multiple games. A cycle of information, wagers, and payouts that repeated too neatly to be coincidence. What investigators uncovered was a machine built on timing, secrecy, and greed that turned harmless fan entertainment into a weapon against the integrity of basketball itself. If Operation Nothing But Bet exposed the greed festering inside the league, Operation Royal Flush revealed something darker, a web of deception that mixed high-stakes poker, spy-grade technology, and organized crime. Federal agents later described it as one of the most sophisticated gambling cons ever uncovered on American soil. And it didn't unfold in shadowy backrooms filled with cigarette smoke and dim lights. No, the action took place in Manhattan penthouses, Hamptons mansions, and exclusive suites in Las Vegas and Miami. The buy-ins range from $10,000 to over $100,000 per seat. To outsiders, it looked like a glamorous escape for the wealthy. Businessmen, retired athletes, and celebrities all gathered to chase adrenaline and prestige. But behind the champagne and smiles, every card, every shuffle, and every hand was under complete control. These conspirators had turned poker into a science of manipulation. The technology they used bordered on science fiction. Investigators found modified shuffling machines fitted with internal sensors that scanned and transmitted deck data in real time. Hidden cameras were disguised inside chip trays, silently reading the faces of every card as they were dealt. Some players wore smart contact lenses or luxury eyeglasses capable of detecting invisible ink markings that only they could see. At the center of it all sat what agents later dubbed the X-ray table. This custom-built poker surface was embedded with microsensors that could detect microchips placed inside the playing cards. As each hand unfolded, the data was transmitted wirelessly to a nearby control device known as the analyzer, a modified smartphone capable of instantly identifying the winning hand before the flop even appeared. But the real genius of the operation wasn't just in the tech, it was in the choreography. Sitting among the players was someone referred to as the quarterback. This insider received the live data feed and relayed it through subtle gestures. A tap on the table, a shift in chip stacks, a meaningless sounding comment. Each movement carried a coded message. Fold, push, go all in. To make everything appear legitimate, the organizers recruited recognizable names, the face cards. Celebrities, retired athletes, and well-known figures like Chauncey Billups and Damon Mookie Jones were allegedly invited to lend the game's credibility. Their presence was the bait. The wealthy businessmen, hedge fund managers, and fellow athletes who sat across the table thought they were playing against legends. In truth, they were the prey. The payoff from this illusion was staggering. Some nights generated over $500,000 in manipulated winnings. Over months of operation, investigators traced millions in cumulative losses suffered by victims who thought their misfortune was simple bad luck. But as greed grew, so did paranoia. And soon, the scheme descended into chaos. FBI reports described instances of equipment thefts, shuffler hijackings, and even violent confrontations between rival crews fighting over the valuable cheating technology. One crew allegedly raided another's warehouse full of rig tables, sparking what agents later called a hardware turf war. When the FBI finally raided the main operation, they seized an arsenal of futuristic gear. Custom poker tables, camera-rigged chip trays, infrared glasses, and decks laced with microscopic ink. It was a real-world casino heist playing out in slow motion. And just when investigators thought they'd reached the bottom of the scandal, a chilling layer emerged, the mob connection. When the indictments were unsealed, even veteran FBI agents paused. The fingerprints of New York's most infamous crime families were everywhere. Names like Gambino, Genovese, Bonanno, and Lucchese appeared throughout the documents. These weren't distant connections. According to prosecutors, members of these families provided the infrastructure that made both Operation Nothing But Bet and Operation Royal Flush possible. They laundered money through shell companies and crypto exchanges, enforced debts, and protected gambling territories through intimidation and violence. When bettors refused to pay or rival crews tried to encroach on profitable games, the old-school mafia tactics returned with a vengeance. One chilling example came from October 2023, when Anthony "Gaspipe" Gilardo, a reputed Gambino enforcer, allegedly assaulted a rival operator with a metal baton during a dispute over rigged poker equipment. The mob's role was simple but essential. They didn't care about basketball, poker, or the players themselves. They cared about control. They provided protection, ensured silence, and kept the money flowing through their networks. The FBI estimated that hundreds of millions of dollars cycled through these pipelines, funneled through offshore accounts, crypto mixers, and legitimate-looking shell corporations. At its heart, this wasn't about sports or cards. It was about power, about who controlled the modern gambling underworld now that sports betting had gone mainstream and billions of dollars flowed through apps every weekend. The mafia families saw an opportunity to reclaim relevance in a new digital era of vice. By the time the FBI shut it all down, the damage was done. The scandal exposed a chilling truth. Corruption no longer needed to hide in shadows. It could thrive under bright lights, dressed in luxury, powered by technology, and fueled by greed, right in front of the world's eyes.
Boston Celtics came to you right now, and they said to you, "We bringing everybody back."
This is what these mafia families have always done, adapt without changing their essence. From smoky back rooms in the 1970s to encrypted group chats in 2025, the tactics stayed the same, only the tools evolved. What once revolved around fixing horse races and boxing matches had now moved into a new, more lucrative frontier, the NBA itself. But what they didn't realize was that their empire was already beginning to crumble. The end was coming faster than anyone could have imagined. It all started when something unusual caught the FBI's eye: strange betting spikes on Miami Heat games in early 2023. Massive sums of money were being wagered on obscure underprop bets, and sportsbooks began noticing the sharp, last-minute movements in the odds. At first, it looked like coincidence, just a few lucky bettors making bold calls. But to federal analysts, it looked like a pattern, one too deliberate to ignore. That pattern would ignite one of the most far-reaching sports investigations in American history. The FBI's cybercrime and organized crime units teamed up, tracing suspicious bets across states, platforms, and offshore accounts. What cracked the case open wasn't technology, but a person, a gambler who knew the system from the inside. This confidential informant didn't just agree to talk. He agreed to wear a wire. Over the next year, he secretly recorded more than 3,000 conversations and meetings, even sitting in on some of the rigged poker games himself. Piece by piece, the Bureau built its case until it was airtight. The takedown came under a cloudless Miami sky. A $50 million luxury yacht anchored just off the coast was hosting one of the wildest NBA parties of the season. Hundreds of players, insiders, and friends gathered to unwind. But at around 2 a.m., the music stopped. The night sky exploded with blinding white floodlights as police boats surrounded the vessel. Tactical teams boarded from all sides. Within minutes, the party turned into chaos. Over 300 guests were detained and questioned, lined up across the deck as agents moved room to room. Phones, laptops, hard drives, and even betting slips were seized. Authorities believed that among those on board were individuals tied directly to Operations Nothing But Bet and Royal Flush, the very networks responsible for the largest sports gambling conspiracy the NBA had ever faced. By morning, basketball no longer felt like basketball. The league, once a symbol of global entertainment and integrity, was suddenly staring into an abyss. Fans woke up to headlines that didn't sound real. At a hastily arranged press conference, Commissioner Adam Silver looked visibly shaken. His tone was calm, but his words carried the weight of disbelief. "I had a pit in my stomach," Silver said. "These allegations are deeply disturbing. The integrity of our game will always be our top priority." Within hours, Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier were placed on indefinite administrative leave, while Portland's assistant coach Tiago Splitter was promoted to interim head coach. The Miami Heat scrambled to adjust their roster midweek, and front offices across the league called emergency meetings. The media storm was immediate. On TNT's Inside the NBA, the panel captured the raw emotion of the moment. Shaquille O'Neal, clearly heartbroken, called it a betrayal of everything the game stands for. Kenny Smith took a more sympathetic view, pointing out that gambling addiction could destroy judgment and lives. But Charles Barkley wasn't having it. "This is an addiction," Barkley snapped. "This is stupidity. You don't fix basketball games. Period." Their debate split the fan base and mirrored a larger cultural question. Were these players victims of temptation or architects of their own downfall? Active players spoke out too. Jaylen Brown of the Celtics criticized how intertwined gambling had become with the NBA. "They brought that world right into the sport without thinking about players," he said. "It's too easy to get in trouble now." Meanwhile, sports journalists turned their scrutiny toward the league itself. For years, the NBA had proudly embraced sports betting as a modern revenue source, striking deals with betting companies, flashing live odds during broadcasts, and running gambling ads during games. Now, those same partnerships were under fire. One headline summed it up bluntly: "You can't sell temptation and act surprised by sin." In Washington, the scandal took a political turn. A bipartisan group of lawmakers demanded a full briefing from the NBA by October 31 SD, calling for nationwide regulations on sports betting. Senator Richard Blumenthal warned that gambling had infiltrated every layer of sports without meaningful oversight. Representative Paul Tonko compared it to the infamous 1919 Black Sox scandal, calling it history repeating itself. Even Tim Donaghy, the disgraced referee from the 2007 betting scandal, resurfaced in interviews claiming this was only the tip of the iceberg. His comments drew mixed reactions. Some saw him as a whistleblower seeking redemption. Others dismissed him as opportunistic. The shockwaves didn't stop with the arrests. They rippled across the entire sports economy. Within days, sportsbook stocks dropped between 2 and 5% as investors feared tighter regulations and eroding public confidence. Executives at DraftKings, FanDuel, and other major operators rushed to reassure shareholders, while league sponsors privately voiced concerns about brand safety. Inside the NBA's headquarters, an emergency overhaul began. Teams were ordered to tighten injury report protocols, monitor player communications more closely, and reevaluate all data sharing agreements with betting firms. What had once been hailed as a cutting-edge business partnership was now viewed as a liability. The league that once proudly embraced gambling was forced into a reckoning. For years, they marketed fan engagement and new revenue streams. Now, those very strategies had helped fuel one of the biggest corruption scandals in modern sports. Was this truly the fault of a few reckless individuals, or proof that gambling had sunk too deep into the foundation of professional basketball? Could the NBA ever rebuild the trust it had lost? For fans, one thing was certain: the illusion of purity was gone. The league's bright lights couldn't hide the shadows anymore. And as the investigation widened, one haunting truth echoed across every arena: the game would never feel the same again. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And click the next video on your screen. You won't want to miss what happens next.